Today we're in 1 Peter, as Pastor David has already led us in reading verses 3 through 9. We're actually going to camp out at the beginning of that. Verses 3, 4, and 5 mostly is where we're going to be today. I'm curious if you've heard what economists are calling the great wealth transfer. Have you heard about this great wealth transfer? Economists are predicting in the next 20 years that $84 million is going to be transferred from the older generation to the younger generations. Now, how many of you in the room, like me, are 60 and over and willing to admit it? Raise your hand. Raise it nice and high. Okay, we're the ones that are going to give the money. Okay, put your hands down. How many of you are under 60? Raise your hands. You're the ones that are getting the money. That's just giving you really good news. Now, it's $84 trillion. That's the largest wealth transfer in the history of our country. $84 trillion moving from those that are 60 and over to those that are under 60. By the way, round figures here, but the numbers work. About 70 million of us are 60 and older. About 260 million of you are under 60. If we took the 84 trillion and said, hey, let's just do it where everybody under 60 gets the same amount, it would be $320,000 per person. Some of you under 60 could go, hey, that would work pretty good for me, right? But it doesn't work that way. It's not for everybody. In fact, the vast majority of the $84 trillion, very small number of people. And the vast majority of people under 60, it's zero. Nothing. The great wealth transfer. But it's not the greatest wealth transfer. The greatest wealth transfer happened in what we call a manger, a made-up crib for a baby. When God became human, he put on skin and he became one of us. 2 Corinthians 8, verse 9, the Apostle Paul describes it this way. For you know the grace of our Lord Jesus Christ, that though he was rich, for your sake he became poor, so that you, by his poverty, might become rich. This is the world's greatest wealth transfer. Amen. And unlike the one happening in our country, that a relatively few number of people will participate in, this wealth transfer is available to everyone. Everyone can participate. And guess what? The more people that participate, it doesn't minimize it for everybody else. There's plenty available for you today in this greatest wealth transfer. In this one, we call it the incarnation. That's the word meaning that God became human. God put on skin and became one of us. And when he did, he offers to us an inheritance. Do you know that's the word the Apostle Peter uses? He uses an inheritance to describe what we get because Jesus was born. He actually references that Jesus was born and that we have the opportunity to be born again. So, you know, when we were born the first time, all of us here, everybody here has been born, because that's how you're here. You had the opportunity, at least, to be a part of an inheritance. But to be part of that inheritance requires you to be born a second time. Or Peter said to be born again, to a living hope that we just talked about. Being born again means turning from our way to Jesus' way, from my way to his way. That's what it means to be born again, to take on a new life, the Jesus way. And when Peter's describing this to them, he begins with a picture of the past. Like, let me tell you what happened. You gave your life to Jesus. You were born again into a living hope. Pastor David talked about that last week. And then he said, but I want to tell you about an inheritance coming your way. And part of the reason that he was telling them that is because they were living in a very difficult and challenging time. And it was not as easy to be a Christian then as it is today, culturally and socially and everything else. Like it was just hard. It was difficult. And he's trying to encourage them. And he says to them, you can have joy unspeakable. That means joy that you can't even fully describe. It's so rich. It's so deep. You can have joy unspeakable. And one of the ways you do it is if you focus your attention, you focus your mind on the inheritance, not on everything else that's going around. It's great. We got to know the past. That's what gives us new life, to be born again. But the joy comes as we look to the future, to our inheritance. And all who have that living hope have an inheritance. And he uses 3 terms. They're actually negative adjectives, like cannot. He uses 3 different terms to help us understand the realities of the inheritance that we have. This inheritance available to all, and all who profess and have faith in Jesus Christ are part of the inheritance. But here is his description of it. It's found in 1 Peter chapter 1, verse 4. And this is where we're going to camp out most of our time. 1 Peter 1, verse 4. And here's what it says. To an inheritance that is imperishable, undefiled, and unfading, kept in heaven for you. These 3 terms, imperishable, undefiled, and unfading, are the rich, deep, meaningful words that help us to understand what does our inheritance look like. What is our inheritance? And by the way, when we say inheritance, what do we mean? Is he going to give us money? That's not what an inheritance is in a spiritual sense. The inheritance is everything we gain for following Jesus. But it's also the new heaven and new earth. In his second letter to the same group of believers, in 2 Peter chapter 3, verse 13, the Apostle Peter says, he describes our inheritance as new heavens and new earth. Our inheritance is a physical place. We will have physical bodies, the same way Jesus had a post-resurrection physical body. He ate, he talked to people. You could touch him, a physical body, and we'll be living in a physical new earth. Only it's different than this one. God created this one, and there was a fall afterwards. In that one, what does that new heaven and new earth look like? Let's look at the words he gives us. The first term is imperishable. That means it cannot decay. I like to say our inheritance is death-proof. It's death-proof. It cannot decay. It will never perish. Someone said it means it's without the germs of death. I like that. You know, everything we see today has the germs of death, the effect of decay. Any of us that are over 40 years old, we know decay is happening to our body. In spite of everything that we try to do, it's like it's falling apart. I have some friends that at Christmas, they sent us a little Christmas greeting a couple days ago, and we've been friends for a long time, and they picked a picture of the 4 of us, me and Betsy and the 2 of them, that's like from 25 years ago. And I look at that picture at myself and go, who is that man? Like, wow, age has done a number on me. Because it's the effect of decay. I am not death-proof. I'm in the process of decaying, and guess what? So are you. It's part of what happens. But not only people, but just our world in general. Decay is everywhere. No matter how beautiful something is today, we know decay is coming. But our inheritance, what's given to us because of the incarnation of Christ, it's death-proof, cannot decay. It's this beautiful, perfect never decaying. Someone said, lurking under the outward splendor of the loveliest earthly things is rottenness and decay. No matter how beautiful it is, we know decay is everywhere, but it's not in our inheritance. That's the first term, imperishable, death-proof. Secondly, he says undefiled. That means it cannot spoil. It means our inheritance is sin-proof. It's sin-proof. The word used here is a word for purity. This same term for purity is used to describe Jesus' sinlessness. It's used to describe the purity of marriage. It's also used by James to describe pure religion. Good religion is pure. It's a beautiful word, meaning that it's not tainted by the effects of the fall of man, not tainted by sin. Everything that we see, everything we experience is somehow tainted by sin. Sin is what makes relationships fall apart. Sin is what makes work so difficult. Sin is what affects all of the negative parts of the world that we live in, are the effects of the fall of man, of sin being a part of mankind. And our inheritance, what comes to us because of the birth of Jesus, because God became man and offers us life with him, because of that, we have an inheritance, this new heaven and new earth, where sin will not be there. It's sin-proof. So much of what we experience today, it's been poisoned by sin. It's the way we see it. The things that God made for us that were beautiful when he made them and wholesome, they somehow now have been poisoned and tainted by sin. All the things like relationships and work, culture and art and music, and faith even, and food and drink, even intimacy. These gifts that God has given us, sin has entered in. They're not what they were first intended to be. But our inheritance, it's sin-proof. It's death-proof, and it's sin-proof. The new heaven and the earth will not be poisoned by sin. All of those things, relationship and work and culture and art and music and faith and food and drink and intimacy, will all be in their fullest expression without the effect of sin. And that is a reason for unspeakable joy and excitement about what God has prepared for us. And the last word is the word unfading. Unfading. Maybe the most beautiful picture he paints is this idea of an unfading world. It cannot fade away. The way I like to say it is, our inheritance is time-proof. The effects of time will not wear on it. I think one language expert said that the term here for this means it's still in bloom. It can't fade away. It's still in bloom. The inheritance that we have, what God has prepared for us, will never fade away. Now, at this Christmas season, this idea of fading away becomes crystal clear because my grandkids are busy telling us, Betsy and me, what gifts they want for Christmas and how much money we should spend on them for Christmas, which we love doing, and we love them having presents. It's all great. But I know it's only a matter of time. 2 minutes, 2 days, 2 weeks, 2 months, 2 years, probably more in the minutes or days, to where the excitement about that gift has faded away. And they don't care about it anymore. They'll care about it for a little while, but it won't. That's because that's the nature of things. They fade away. I also read recently, I don't read these very often, but some of these near-death experiences that people have, and one of the things that they describe is that as they went back and forth between the veil, that the colors and sounds were so much more vivid than what they experience here. And I don't know if that's really true. I don't know about those experiences, but it kind of makes sense in light of the passage that the place that Jesus has prepared for us is unfading. Time doesn't make things fade, and all of the things that happen. And by the way, things do fade. Like my hearing is fading. Has that happened to any other men? I mean, at least my wife tells me my hearing is fading. My eyesight is fading. Like the colors aren't as brilliant as they used to be because things fade, but not our inheritance. Our inheritance is unfading. It will be as beautiful. Listen to this. It will be as beautiful to us, as startling, as amazing to us after 10,000 years as it was the very first glance we gave it. It never fades. Crystal clear and there for us. It is as stunning and beautiful after a lifetime of lifetimes as it is the very first day. Our inheritance is untouched by death, unstained by evil, unimpaired by time. It is in substance incorruptible, in purity undefiled, in beauty unfading. We have available to us, because of the incarnation of Jesus, this most unbelievable inheritance that is available to all. And it is a reason for joy. And then he uses one other term. I don't want you to miss this, because it may be what gives us the most confidence of all. It says this: kept in heaven for you. Kept in heaven for you. This time of year, we're busy keeping presents from our grandkids that will one day be for our grandkids. But God's not trying to keep stuff from us. He is keeping it for us. Most of the time, people see God as trying to keep things from us. But that's not the way it is. He is keeping this inheritance, the most unimaginable, beautiful place with all of its splendor and glory, and no death, and no sin, and no decay, and no fading. He's keeping it for us. And that's a picture of the future that can give us joy. Unspeakable joy, like joy so rich I don't even know how to say it. I don't know how to define it. Because it's so rich. He's saved this inheritance. He's keeping this inheritance for me and for you. And it's available. Unlike the inheritances here, very few people get to participate in. This inheritance, it's available to everyone. Nobody's left out. And that's a reason for unspeakable joy. It's not kept that way for everybody, by the way. You know that? There's some times when inheritance goes bad. You familiar with the name Joe Robbie? When I think about an inheritance gone bad, I think about that. Joe Robbie died in 1990. When he died, he was the owner of the Miami Dolphins and Joe Robbie Stadium, which is still the stadium down in Miami, but it's got a different name today. And he was the founder of the Miami Dolphins. And when he died, his net worth was about $300 million. $150 million on the team and $150 million on the stadium, more or less. But he didn't plan well for his death. And when he died, his heirs, who had an inheritance from him, had a 55% inheritance tax that they had to pay on the $300 million. And they did not have the cash to pay for the tax. And so his children ended up having to sell the football team and the stadium just to give enough cash to be able to pay the about $170 million tax bill. Now that sounds terrible. Don't feel too badly for them. They were left with $130 million. I think they're going to be okay. But if you look at about what could have been, what they expected the inheritance to be, the value today, 34 years later, just of the team, just the football team, is valued at $4.6 billion today. Gone. Just like that. And that's how fragile most inheritances are. But not this one. This one's kept for you. You don't have to worry about it being there when it's time. It'll be there because it's kept in heaven for you. Could there be better words? Could there be better words for joy? Your inheritance is kept in heaven for you. And that's good news. That's reason for joy. He paints us a beautiful picture. A little bit of the past, but mostly he paints this picture of the future that gives us a reason for joy. Unspeakable joy. I don't know how to describe it. A couple weeks ago, Betsy and I had the opportunity to go visit a longtime friend. His name is Paul. And when I was a college student here at the church, Paul and his wife Sandra were small group leaders for our college ministry, and he was a small group leader that I connected with. I became friends with his children, and we're friends with the family for a long, long time, even endures to today. And I got invited to do a wedding in Mount Dora, and he lives in Mount Dora now. And so I said, hey, Betsy, when we go up there, let's go a little bit early to the wedding, and let's go visit Paul to be able to say hello to him. I'd not been to his house there, and I wanted to see him. He was always one of these guys, just a big encourager to me, and he challenged me spiritually, but he wasn't like the spiritual police. He was a spiritual partner, always encouraging and believing the best in me and encouraging me. And I wanted a chance just to be with him and to tell him how much he meant to me and what a blessing his journey has been for me and Betsy. And so we made arrangements. I texted him, and we had the chance to go over there. And when we got there, his daughter and granddaughter were there. They lived there with him, and so we went in and said hello. And I got kind of in conversation with the daughter and granddaughter, and Betsy and Paul walked into the living room. And after a few minutes, I wandered over there, and one whole wall of their home was photographs, and in all kinds of frames, and some on the wall and some on some furniture and stuff. And Betsy and Paul were going, and he was pointing to the different pictures and describing it. And I'm not 100% sure, but it seemed to me like every picture was Sandra. She was in every one of them, his wife. And he's pointing to and he's telling about all of the pictures as they go through. And it occurred to me when he was doing this, and this is a simple thought, which is probably why it occurred to me, but all of those photographs were of the past. Like he didn't have anything to talk about Sandra, about the present or even the future. Because, photographs tell a story of the past. And there was something profoundly sad about that. And I hurt for him in that moment, like, wow, it's got to be so hard. Like, all you have to think about and talk about is the past. So we finished that, and he finished telling the stories, and then we went into he's made a little office for himself. It's the most beautiful thing because he's got it set up where he can be in a nice, easy chair, and he's got 2 different screens. He can have different things on the screens, and he tells me which one is where he plays our services every Sunday. He streams our service. He said, right there is where I watch you guys, and he, shows us everything the way it happens. And I think he watches other churches as well, but he's making sure and watch ours every single Sunday, and he tells me what a blessing it is. And as we're visiting there, a picture catches my eye. And it's kind of behind everything else, and I'm not sure exactly what it is, and it's got some words across the top. And then it occurs to me what it's a picture of. And man, said, now that says way more about the future than it does the past. And I was able to get a picture of it, and it's not perfect, but I think you'll get the gist of what the picture is. So look at this. That's telling a beautiful story about the future. an inheritance that never fades away. And that is a reason for unspeakable joy. Unspeakable joy that only happens because God became human. He's incarnated. He took on life like us. And today, you don't have to be part of the few and select to be a part of the inheritance. Everyone can be part of the inheritance. Everyone here, everyone watching. The inheritance is available to all of us. And maybe today would be the day that you want to say, hey, Danny, I want to start following Jesus. I want a piece of that inheritance. I want to experience that today. Because the reality is when you start walking with Jesus, we begin to experience the benefits of that future inheritance even today. The joy that we can live with, the relief that we can live with, the peace that we can live with, the forgiveness that we live with. And that's available to you today. If you'd like to find out more about what it means to follow Jesus, you can text 40777, text the word NEXT to that. Somebody will contact you today and answer questions for you. Might be easier if you're here today, you can go to the lobbies. Anybody with a name tag and a smile on their face, they'd be happy to talk to you, answer questions, and we're not going to embarrass you or put you on the spot. We know what it's like to be where you are, to be nervous and anxious and not sure of yourself, talking about God or asking questions about God, and it's okay. We can help you. Just take the first step. Say to anybody with a name tag, hey, I'd like to know more about following Jesus. Or I'll be down here after the service if you want to come talk to me. Come right up and just say, hey, I want to talk more about following Jesus, and I'll be happy to talk to you. I want you to experience, we want you to experience inheritance that can be yours. Because God became a baby and changed everything when he did. Today, I thought it would be great for us to sing a song to finish. It's a song that we sing at any time of year, but the writer of the song actually recently added a Christmas lyric to it as well. It says, held within a manger, the Son of God arrived, the one who would be called Immanuel. The band and the singers are going to come out and lead us in this song called Holy Forever. And it's a song that you know well, you've enjoyed. And today I want you to sing it with a new enthusiasm, because the one we're singing about is the one who's provided this inheritance for us. And I'm going to read just a summary that the Apostle Paul gave us. It's in Philippians chapter 2. It kind of sums up what Jesus did in coming here this way. And then we're going to stand and sing together. Here's what Paul said. Have this mind among yourselves, which is also in Christ Jesus, who though he was in the form of God, did not count equality with God a thing to be grasped. But Jesus emptied himself by taking the form of a servant, and being born in the likeness of men, and being found in human form, he humbled himself by becoming obedient to the point of death, even death on the cross. Therefore, God has highly exalted him and bestowed upon him the name that is above every name, so that at the name of Jesus, every knee should bow in heaven, on earth, and under the earth, and every tongue confess that Jesus Christ is Lord, to the glory of God the Father. Let's stand and let's sing.
Son of God arrived, the one who would be called Immanuel. The promise was delivered unto a virgin bride, the one who would be called Immanuel. Come on, we'll sing. Your name is the highest. Your name is the greatest. Your name stands above